If you are searching for meaning, look no further than inside oneself. I believe we have an internal guidance system that is trying to guide us towards a meaningful life, a meaningful existence. There's that Steve Jobs quote where he says, have the courage to listen to your intuition. It somehow knows what you want to become. And I think that is so true. It is so true that our intuition knows what we should do. And deep down, we know what we should do, but we suppress it because maybe it's not logical, maybe it's not rational, maybe it's scary, maybe we're afraid. So we suppress the feelings of the things that we know we should do. And I believe that is where meaning is to be found. And listening to that internal guidance system, the still small voice, the Bible calls it. And that very well may be God. And when we don't listen to it, I believe we do a disservice to ourselves, and we do a disservice to our journey and our path, because we don't listen to the thing that's trying to make us become that which we are. Nietzsche also has a quote where he says, "What does your conscience say you should do? You should become who you are." I believe that is very profound. I believe our conscience our conscience knows us better than we know us, and we should listen to it so we can become who we are instead of listening to all the outside noise. There's another quote I like, and it's, when you start thinking with your heart and feeling with your mind, the river of wisdom will flow. And I think that's what we need in this day and age, and what so many people need if you're searching for meaning. Because meaning won't come out of the logical path if you go against what your nature is telling you, what your conscience is telling you, what the still small voice is telling you, what your internal guidance system is trying to show you. I think if you go against that, it's so hard to find meaning, and you'll realize that the unlived life is making you ill. And what a horrible thing that is. I think it's also very important to remember what you are signing up for if you say you want a life of meaning. I think it's important to realize what you're not signing up for. You're not signing up for a life of fame, of riches, of anything of that nature, of any external success or external validation. You are signing up for a life of internal validation, of internal bliss, of true peace, of true happiness. So don't listen to your internal guidance system and expect the other side to yield riches, to yield earthly things, because it won't. Or let me rephrase, it doesn't guarantee these things. They may be a byproduct of you doing this, but they are not what your internal guidance system, I believe, is wired to guide you towards. It's wired to guide you towards your nature, to the life that you are meant to live, to the life that you are destined to live. And if you follow it and you expect it to be this easy road of riches, wealth, fame, things of that nature, you will be sorely mistaken, and you may think yourself out of happiness. You may have meaning, you may have true peace of mind, you may have happiness, but you didn't walk that path for those things. You walked them for something else. So you'll think yourself out of happiness. You'll say, no, I can't be happy. I don't, I don't live in that big house I always wanted to live in. I don't have that car I always wanted. The person I always wanted to make more money than makes more money than me. And you'll think yourself out of happiness, and you'll think yourself out of meaning, and then you'll half-ass both of them. You'll half-ass the life of meaning, and then you'll half-ass the life of money and pleasure, and in the end you'll get neither, and you'll be lost, and you'll be wondering where you went wrong. And it's because you never truly walked a path. You walked in the middle of two paths, and you got neither. And I think the path the internal guidance system is trying to guide you on is the path. But I think it's also better to just pick one and understand what you are picking if you pick that path. You may obtain earthly things, but it is not a guarantee, and it's never a guarantee. But if you walk that path, I think it's a guarantee you'll find meaning, at least in the fact that you are walking a path true to yourself, that you lived a life true to yourself and not a life others expected you to live. And you lived a life that you can look back on and say, I'm happy I'm not saying what if. I'm happy I'm not wondering how life would have went if I just listened to myself, if I just trusted myself, if I just went for it, if I just didn't listen to my brain and followed my dreams. To be able to say that at the end of life, I think is maybe more valuable than all the money in the world. So just for that reason alone, one should walk their own path. And I think it's also very important to remember that you are walking your own path when you are doing that. Because sometimes I think when things go wrong, when we're walking our own path, we despair. But we forget the fact that we are walking our own path. And if you forget that fact, it will be hard to deal with all the hardships. But if you can remind yourself you're doing this in service to yourself, a very selfish reason. But I think the most selfless things we can do sometimes are be selfish. Because you have to figure out what you would be best service, how your time would be a best service to humanity, and what you can do with your time that will get the most out of it. And you have to be selfish to figure that out. You have to try new things. You have to say no to people. You have to walk your own path to figure out how you can be of best service and how your time can be of best use. You have to be selfish. And it's a very selfless reason. It's not narcissistic. It's not things of that nature. It's in service to the greater good because you are unlocking your potential and helping others along the way. But I think it's very valuable to remember that fact because you may despair on the path because you're walking it and then you realize all the things you don't have. But don't be so quick to forget the things you do have, like walking your own path, and how much it would eat at you if you weren't walking your own path, how much you would wish you were, how much you would wake up every day with this sense of you're not doing that which you should be doing. To not wake up with that feeling is worth more than anything. True peace of mind is worth more than anything. And I believe you may obtain it by listening to your internal guidance system and by looking no further than inside when you are searching for meaning and what you should do. I think it's really, I heard Jordan Peterson say recently that thinking is different than asking questions and asking questions to oneself. And I think it's pretty obvious when you say it, but it's really profound when you think about it, because I've before, been trying to think myself through a problem and then realized if you ask yourself, an answer comes. You say, what do I really want to do? And then, something comes. It comes from somewhere. And then you really know what you want to do. And I think so often we lie to ourselves and act like we don't know what we want to do. We say, oh, I'm torn. I don't know what I want to do. Like, I'll flip a coin. And then you flip a coin, and then you get the option you didn't really want. And you say, well, let me flip it again, best 2 out of 3. And it's like, you said you were torn, but you clearly weren't. You clearly were leaning more to one side than the other. So why not do it? Why not do that which you know you should do? You know? Why? We so often know exactly what we need to do, but we don't do it. And we act like we don't know what we need to do. We say, oh, I'm stuck. I have no idea what to do. What should I do? And then an answer hits you in the face, and you say, well, not that. What else should I do? I did this once because it was a while ago. And I was like, I heard somebody say, I think, like, if you ask, it will tell you, like, your internal, the conscience will tell you what you should do. And I was like, all right, like, what should I do, conscience? And it screamed at me. It screamed at me to quit my job. And I said, I screamed at me. And I said, but what else? Like, I said, not that, but what else? And it said, no, quit your job. And I didn't. And looking back, I should have. But it was just, I think it's so interesting how the internal guidance system knows what we want. Our intuition knows what we want, but sometimes it's not. Well, it knows what we should do, but sometimes it's not what we want to do. And I think that's because it's hard sometimes. The change is uncomfortable, there's fear in it, the growth that you will obtain is uncomfortable. So we say, no, I don't want to walk that path. I don't want to change. It's scary. It's uncomfortable. It's, so on and so forth. But that's what we need to do. These are the things we must do. And it leads to a life of meaning. It leads to a life of purpose. It leads to a life lived well. But it's not an easy life. That's another thing I forgot to mention. It isn't a life, the life of meaning isn't a life of riches, wealth, fame, or ease. It's hard. It's uncomfortable. There's a lot of change. And you have to be prepared for that. It's not all sunshine and rainbows, just obtaining meaning. You'll often ask yourself what you should do, and it's the last thing you want to do, but it's the first thing you should do. And it takes a lot of courage, discipline, faith to listen to your heart instead of your head. But when we do that, the river of wisdom will flow and the life of meaning will come. And isn't that all anyone wants? I think people say they want happiness, but they really want meaning. And I think happiness is better described as peace. But if you have meaning, you have peace of mind. Therefore, you have happiness. But it's so hard to have happiness or peace of mind when you have no meaning. When you're in an existential crisis, you have no meaning and you feel like life has no purpose. It's hard to sit there and be at peace, in your head. But when you listen to that internal guidance system, when you walk your own path, when you do that which you know you should do, peace of mind is just a byproduct. It's just, you're just at peace because you're living the life you were meant to live. You're doing the things you should be doing. And you're right where you're meant to be, and you couldn't be anywhere else. Great peace comes from this. Great peace. And the only way we get it is from listening. So look no further.